This evaluation according to the most recent Zogby Analytics report card. John Zogby, the senior analyst for Zogby Analytics and the author of the book First Globals, Understanding, Managing, and Unleashing Our Millennial Generation, joins us now. John, I know that generationally people can have different points of view, but what factors did you consider in your scorecard to determine that this has been a good week for the president?
And it was just that. It was a good week. For starts, you had the economic growth report, a substantially higher rate of growth for the gross domestic product than even economists had expected, and just a good rate, 5%, under any circumstances. In addition to that, somebody hit North Korea. We're not quite sure who, and I guess in the last couple of days we're not quite sure if they were the ones that hit us. In any event, the limited internet in North Korea went down. Everybody thinks it was us, and that's not a bad thing. And then thirdly, policy and global affairs seem to be hurting Russia, and it's an opportunity, at least, for the president to say, hey, the sanctions are working. Russia is more isolated, and so add those all together, and it's 1 week in a row, JD, but it's 1 week, and I gave him an A.
All right. What was his grade the week before, John?
It was C-. There were hints of a good economic report, but still holdovers from from previous weeks. The one thing that we saw during the past week that we hadn't seen the week before is that the more recent polls for the president during this past week are noticeably up. If you take the polls that have just been taken over the last 6 or 7 days now, the president is at 45 to 48%, actually averaging 46, which is substantially higher. Now, of course, if you factor in older polls, he's still at around 43, but in any event, I think putting all of those together, it certainly made for a better week than previous weeks.
And of course, you're grading this week to week, but I just wonder, in terms of overall context, do we all have long-term attention deficit disorder? In other words, we're in an information age where it's the here and now and not what's transpired before?
Well, I think the sides are drawn basically regarding this president, hey, as they were, with previous presidents too, after they've been in office for a while. So there's very little opportunity here for big movement by him, unless, of course, there's a major strike of some sort, which can drive a president's numbers up. But I mean, essentially, for the time being, I think that there are folks who really dislike the president enormously. There are those who like him enormously, and he's somewhere at around, he's a 50-50 president. And odds are that's probably where he'll end up, barring anything unforeseen.
About a minute remains. The late Milton Friedman said the United States Congress existed for one purpose in the late 20th century, and that was to micromanage the tax code, almost as if there were no constitutional considerations. A lot of conservatives look at what the president has done, essentially ignoring the Constitution and acting despite the results of the midterm election. Can he just do basically what he wants, and that will improve public opinion? About 45 seconds to answer that, John.
In all honesty, he has won 2 elections by majority, and he's lost 2 congressional elections by majority. And what we have is gridlock. I think it's a jump ball, JD. I mean, essentially, he will do what he can get away with, and Congress can do what it can get away with. He has a bit more constitutional authority on his side, though, when it comes to limited acts, like immigration, for example. So I think look for him to be building his legacy and solidifying his legacy. He'll do whatever it is he can do.
And we're going to look to you to stay with us, John Zogby, to talk about where these viewpoints emanate from. That's ahead. More with John Zogby here on America's Forum.